honestly, every kind of business owner probably needs to be doing writing. Now, here's the thing. I think a lot of people separate speaking and writing, which in some contexts is really important to do. Like, I think about the work I do versus somebody like Cindy Skolicki who coaches speakers, right? In that kind of context, it's really important to look at the differences between speaking and writing. But in both cases, you're composing text. And I think that my sense of writing as a term is that it's any kind of composing text that has to get done for the business.
Hey, it's Nick Armstrong, and you are listening to the Founding in FoCo podcast. In every episode, we get to talk with a creative mover and shaker in our community who is doing cool and interesting things. And today I'm here with Sharon. Sharon, tell us about your business.
Hi, I left an academic career last fall to start my content editing business, Something Polished. I basically have turned my academic career of helping writers learn to be better into now a privatized career of helping writers learn to be better at what they do. And I find that business owners are writers, whether they like it or not, in most cases. So that's why I'm here.
Most of them don't like it, right? Is that the...
They don't. And that's really, I think, the service I offer. You know, I walk into spaces and do the elevator pitch, and I say something like, you know, I help solopreneurs reclaim their time by removing the stress point of writing. But like, really what I'm saying is, if you don't like to write, I'm going to help you get past the sort of stuck in the blockage. Wow, that's turning a little more biological than I intended, but I do help you just get past that sort of stuck point, right? And that stuck point might be anxiety. It might be that you don't like writing and it makes you anxious and you don't want to do it. So then, you know, it takes you 8 months to write a blog post, or it might be that you are just more excited by the other stuff that you're doing and writing is not your thing. And you know you got it done, but no, you got to get it done, but you don't want to do it. And I will help with that.
I'm feeling one of our listeners is like 8 months. And that t-shirt for 3 years. That's what I've got.
Oh, I mean, I'm there too. Like, I have writing projects that I've been working on. That's just for the visual. I did the air quotes that I've been working on for like 10 years. You know, I'm there too.
What's the first step? What's the actionable item here? Because I know a lot of small business owners get in their heads about, oh, I should be writing for my audience, or I should write for this particular audience, or we're launching a new product, or, oh man, did our business anniversary just pass? And they sit on that content. So what's the first step to get them out of that writer's block mode?
No one is going to like this answer, but the only answer to that question is to just do it. And I know that's really hard. And a lot of what I offer my clients is some coaching through the just do it stage of the process, because sometimes having a little bit of accountability or even just talking through ideas with somebody before sitting down and trying to write can help get to the just do it stage. But really, I mean, there's just no shortcut. And I would say that rather than focusing on whatever step of the rhetorical process, the writing process might come first, figure out what that is for you. For me, it's understanding who my target audience is, like a really thorough analysis. I go talk to people. I read other things that they're reading. I look for online spaces that they're in, so I get a really full picture of who they are and what their values are and what their wants are and how I can speak to that. Some writers do better by coming out of their own head first and just saying everything they're thinking and then tailoring it to their target audience down the line. So whatever the first step is for each individual writer, it really boils down to the same thing. You just got to do it, like write first and then worry about the processing and the polishing to make it a final product.
Okay. What I have heard you say
yes, I love that.
is you have to identify the piece, right? So write the piece, whatever the content is that's sitting in your head.
Yep.
Then figure out who it's for, right?
Yep.
And nail down the target audience, which sounds to me like go through Facebook groups and other things like that, or online forums or blogs or online magazines, and figure out what it is that is being said in that space. And then get it out to those people, distribute that content. Yep. So that sounds like a ton of expansive work, which is probably why you preface this, which nobody's going to like this answer. Is that right? Or are there ways to chunk that work? Is there ways to get to done more efficiently or faster?
Well, I think the good news is that for most of us as business owners, especially, our target audiences don't move a lot. Like once we know what our niche is and our target audience is, they kind of stay relatively static. So in some sense, that's kind of a front loading piece of the work, right? Like there's really only one time that you're going to have to spend a whole lot of, I'm going to say minutes because that feels safer than hours, but really for most people, it's going to be hours just feeling out the audience, needing to understand them. But then once you have the understanding, you're just sort of modifying it as your audience shifts, right? You don't have to really start from scratch again. So I think that is a bit of comfort we can take, is that you really only have to do that once. Other than that, I think that I'm going to footnote here. My old academic career is showing. I'm going to footnote here with, I personally, as an experienced writer and a longtime teacher of writing, I do not subscribe to the idea that there is one right way to write. I think every writer has to find a process that works for them, which is something I can help with, but really it's just going to take some practice, right? Some getting out and doing it. But I do think that for most of us, whatever our personal process looks like, it's easier for us to kind of get into a flow and do a lot of writing at once than it is to, say, try to do a little bit of writing every day, or trying to do, I have some clients on like a weekly blog schedule, and it's not very common for them to actually sit down every week and write that blog for the week, right? They might do it monthly, or they might do it quarterly, or they might even do it, in some cases, one case really only that I can think of, on an annual basis, where they just carve out a week and that's their writing time. And then they just sort of tweak it as they need to over the year. So I think the easiest way to batch it is to experiment a little bit to find out what kind of writing process is comfortable for you. And then, play with how that fits into your life.
What I'm hearing is that you are of the opinion every business owner needs to be writing something. Is that true of like a business like Carpet Mill, where it's maybe not the best industry, the most attractive industry? Like, should Carpet Mill be blogging on a regular basis?
I mean, blogging isn't the only kind of writing. Writing is a pretty big umbrella term. Writing might look like blogging. It might look like working with your marketing team to produce some ideas for your marketing content for the year. It might look like putting together a presentation for Founded in FoCo or some other speaking engagement. It might look like writing an employee handbook for your employees. Like, there's all kinds of writing. And I think that the business type will probably influence the kinds of writing that are most prominent. And certainly marketing approaches influence the kind of writing that is most prominent. But I do think that, honestly, every kind of business owner probably needs to be doing writing. Now, here's the thing. I think a lot of people separate speaking and writing, which in some contexts is really important to do. Like, I think about the work I do versus somebody like Cindy Skolicki, who coaches speakers, right? In that kind of context, it's really important to look at the differences between speaking and writing. But in both cases, you're composing text. And I think that my sense of writing as a term is that it's any kind of composing text that has to get done for the business.
Who locally is doing a great job of getting their writing out there, whether it's, a piece of marketing copy or blog posts or something else, that like an employee handbook, like you mentioned?
Well, honestly, the first person that came to mind, mostly because I mentioned her to someone else at Made in Loveland last week, which also is going on right now, of course, is Kat Hart at the SBDC. I think she is great about regular, consistent, targeted writing. I always know a piece is from her. I know who she's speaking to, and I know to expect it on a pretty regular basis. And I know Kat sort of projects herself as the front man for the team, but my sense of things from talking to that team is that Kat does do a lot of the text generation, a lot of the writing. So I think she's a great example. I'm trying really hard not to just go to other writing and rhetorically based businesses. I do think I mean, that's our specialty. Most of us are pretty good at it. Like Jenny Morris over at Dependence is a really great example of, again, a regular, consistent, targeted writer. She also is skilled enough to talk about those things and to tell you why she's doing what she's doing. I am a fan of Dane Johnson, who I work with at 1 Million Cups. I think he does a really good job in his newsletters, and his speaking engagements, I think, are really strongly composed. So those are a few off the top of my head. I did not prepare and answer that question. I'd probably come up with a better list.
It's great to hear so many local business owners mentioned, and that's, I think, a testament to the depth of the business knowledge. Because you just named 3 different businesses and 3 completely different verticals, who are all able to tackle that carpet mill question really well. Because business development education, the Loveland SBDC, that's not necessarily something that has, it's like the Ferrari of businesses. No, like Rev Zero, a little bit closer maybe to the Ferrari of business. Isolation Coffee that Dane also has, those are businesses that people like to connect with and talk about. But the more mundane or the more everyday a business is, I find that when they truly nail that copy, or if they truly nail an employee handbook or the company culture or the newsletter or whatever it is that they're working on, that's where it's most surprising, and also most valuable, because it allows them to stand out where otherwise they would have been commoditized.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think especially most of my clients do tend to be either solopreneurs or very small companies where the leader is wearing a lot of hats. Like, I think that's why I thought of Kat immediately, because she strikes me as that same kind of role where she's wearing a lot of hats all the time. And to find the time and the resources to compose really strong text is hard in that context. So I'm impressed. And I also want to add to what I said about Kat, that I do, I'm one of the organizers for 1 Million Cups. So I do follow the SBDC sort of branches in the area and all the chambers of commerce. And I think out of that group of people, Kat is an exemplar. She is great at it, where some of the others are good, but she's great.
I'm a fan of Kat too. She and I were in leadership Northern Colorado together, so there was a ton of time just to connect with each other. And the Loveland SBDC forever is my appreciation as a innovative space. It's actually where I got my teaching start too. Nice. So it's a wonderful organization all the way up and down. Tell me about, how did you get started, and where do you see your business going in the next 5 years?
The getting started question is always a little bit hard for me, because in some ways I feel like I have been doing this my whole life. Like, the earliest I can remember exchanging my skills for someone else's help. Like, I helped someone write a school paper. They helped me with my math homework, which is not my strong suit. The earliest I remember doing that was 9 years old, I think. So most of my life, I have been offering this skill to help other people. And I parlayed that all through my higher education career. I traded skills in college. I helped other students with their essays, and they helped me with stuff I was struggling with. I think I once actually exchanged assessing a 20-page paper for someone to fix a major car issue I was having. So, barter system, I've been doing it forever. And then I turned that into an actual higher education career. I was an adjunct professor at Colorado State University for about 15 years, and I taught writing mostly. So I've been doing it professionally in that context. Once I started in the higher education career, how to say this nicely, higher education does not pay very well. We'll just leave it at that. And I realized really quickly that with everything I had invested in my own education, I was going to need to supplement that income. So I very quickly started working with a good friend of mine who was local and is now down in the Denver area. She used to own 5 Rings Web Design. And she said to me one day, I have this client who, I've put in all these hours on the back end of their website development, but now we're getting to the point where we actually need to put the pages together. And I just, can you help them? Like it was this very direct, please, they need your help. And then I turned that into kind of an on again, off again side gig for that whole 15 years. I've worked with all kinds of clients through that web development business because, of course, she was working with all kinds of clients. One of my steadiest clients was actually the major European hub of open source Drupal programming. So I worked with them for years. That's Acquia, if anyone knows that business. I worked with them for a long time. And then in the last couple of years, I realized that this is the work that makes me feel really satisfied. Like there are things about teaching that make me feel satisfied. Actually, the teaching itself generally does, but the reality of working as an adjunct in the higher education system was just really starting to beat me down. So I left and I am still getting to do the work I love. Still a kind of teaching, right? I'm helping individual clients grow and learn and become better writers. So I'm still getting to do all that teaching just without that framework. I'm hoping in the next 5 years that I am going to get the satisfaction of watching my currently mostly fledgling business clients. Almost everybody I'm working with is in the startup or like very early scale up stage. I'm really hoping the next 5 years, I'm going to get to see them grow and prosper and become really solid businesses in their own right. And that I get to help them do that by helping them produce really excellent text for their public facing text.
It's cool to be in that teaching space and have the ability to sort of guide the path for folks that are coming up through the ranks. Sending the elevator back down is another way to put that, right? And it's really a rewarding thing as an entrepreneur. Who do you look for in terms of inspiration in our community or elsewhere? Who do you look to as folks who are really doing what you do well and you're using them as a teaching platform?
Well, I know I already mentioned her, but I am actually really good friends with Jenny Morse. We met in the CSU sphere. We both were engaged in adjunct equity fights together on campus, so became close comrades doing that. And I really see Jenny as probably my closest role model, which I think is funny. Like hearing that come out of my mouth is kind of funny because she does a different piece of it, right? She trains whole organizations at once, where I like to work one-on-one with smaller clients and kind of a longer term relationship in most cases. But she and I think, do very similar work. And we actually have some very nascent ideas for collaborations in the next couple of years. So you may see us offering some workshops and classes together to kind of use the way that our skills complement each other and our clients complement each other to get a little more effective teaching done.
I'm absolutely psyched. I can't wait for that. But in the meantime, I can't wait to hear what you're going to be teaching about at Founded in FoCo. So tell us about what your session is.
Well, when I was writing that proposal for a session, I was working with 3 different clients at once who were all experiencing what I can only describe as generalized writing anxiety, where we would talk about the writing that they needed to get done, and I would just watch their faces kind of do the shutdown, lack of emotion. And I felt like, oh no, I have to go into coach mode. Not, oh no, I actually like being in coach mode, but I was like, oh no, we got to do some emotional management here before we can get to the actual process of writing. And I started thinking, because of just that all happening with several clients at once, I started thinking about why that might be. And I was talking to them about it. And I realized that at least one source of anxiety for a lot of business writers is just that they don't have a whole lot of writing experience outside of formal instructional environments like school, where there is a lot of anxiety and stress about the quality of the writing and how they're being judged on it. So the session that I'm offering is kind of focused on breaking through that anxiety block and getting to the writing, to the just do it stage a little bit faster. It's going to be very workshoppy, because that is, I think, the best way to do things is to, as I said, just do it. So we're going to do some of that together. Try to get at some of the roots of what their personal blocks might be, what kinds of writing they need to get done, and how they can get to do that. Hopefully people who attend my session will walk out of the room with some clear ideas about imminent writing projects, maybe even with a start on 1 or 2 of them, just a few lines. They can get past that blank piece of paper or blank screen stage, and sit down and be a little more productive.
Do you have a therapist doing this with you? Because I feel like if you need therapy right here on the left, the Xanax on the right, don't worry about it. I'm going to come out of here with at least 3 paragraphs.
I actually thought about that a little bit, that I was kind of taking on a writing therapist role for this session, but I have a lot of practice doing that. I mean, college students, I think, go through that in a sort of different fashion with the shift from K-12 to higher education. There's that similar kind of having to learn to write in new circumstances, anxiety. So I'm not at all a trained or licensed therapist, but I do have a lot of practice with writing anxiety, particularly. And, you know, we've got the mental health stuff going on at the same time. So I will happily walk people to a booth outside for a little bit of more emotional support after the session.
Absolutely. Brain Crawl is it's the mental health resource fair for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. It's such an amazing thing to be doing. And actually the acknowledgement, I just think it's such a great thing to be able to acknowledge the role that anxiety, your mental space, whatever else plays a role in your writing, how your tone is generated, the ideas that can come forth out of all of that. So thank you for bringing that to the table for us at Founded in FoCo. I so appreciate it. Where can we find out more about you and your business?
My business website is somethingpolish.net, and I'm building an Instagram account. There's not much there yet, but I will be there soon. And I do have a Facebook page that's just Something Polished on Facebook.
So you're in that just do it phase with Instagram.
I am. Yes, very much. I have found myself falling into familiar anxiety management habits of wanting to do a lot of research and doing some classes on Instagram text. I'm justifying it to myself as genre research, so I understand the medium a little bit better, but I am at the point where I need to just do it.
Well, we wish you luck.
Thank you.
I think that all of us struggle with that at some degree, in the same way that you'll help us overcome writing. I'm sure that there is someone at Founded in FoCo who will help you overcome the anxiety riddled world of Instagram.
It is, isn't it? It's
a very interesting thing. Most of our marketing is rooted in fear and anxiety. That's what I'm learning through today's podcasts. So thanks for that. If you want more great business advice and maybe some balms for your anxiety, visit us at Founded in FoCo, March 1st through 3rd at Front Range Community College, and also online with tons of recorded panel sessions and podcasts just like this one with business experts in the community that you can connect with, learn from, and even work with. So we'll hope to see you next time, Founded in FoCo. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is a Founded in FoCo podcast. For more great interviews like this one, join us at foundedinfoco.com.